Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made a surprise visit to the Western Wall hours before the country goes to polls. The ancient Western Wall is the most sacred prayer site in Judaism. It is located in the eastern part of the city of Israel, captured in the 1967 Middle East War and later annexed in a move not recognized internationally. Israelis will be casting their mandate for the parliamentary elections today. Final polls in the campaign show that Netanyahu has fallen behind his main challenger, centrist Benny Gantz. Opinion polls, however, show that Netanyahu has an easier path to form a government that would keep him in power for a record fifth term. Benny Gantz, who is a prime ministerial candidate and Benjamin Netanyahu's main challenger in the election, concluded his campaign at his party headquarters in Tel Aviv. Gantz met with young activists hours before the polls and urged them to encourage others to go out and vote. Gantz is a popular former armed forces chief and a political newcomer. He joined forces with the right-wing Moshe Yaalon, who is a former defense minister, and the centre-left former finance minister Yair Lapid to form the new centrist Blue and White party. Blue and White draws a lot of its support from the middle class. The British Parliament passed a fast-track law that compels the government to seek a delay to Brexit rather than leave the European Union without a deal. Prime Minister Theresa May has already committed to seeking an extension, but lawmakers still went ahead with the bill in order to treat it as an insurance policy. While the Theresa May government intends for Britain to leave the EU in the next few months, it is also making plans to participate in European Parliament elections. The bloc elections take place from 22nd till the 26th of May. Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn said that the UK government did not seem to be quote-unquote moving off the original red lines. In achieving a compromise Brexit deal, Corbyn acknowledged that the government now was prepared to reconsider parts of the political declaration, but said that he did not know in what way. Corbyn added that he had put forward a case for a customs union with the EU and was waiting for movement from Prime Minister Theresa May. May's government is hoping to find a compromise deal 2 days before EU leaders decide whether to grant an extension to the UK's departure from the bloc. In Venezuela, a group of shantytown residents took to the streets of Caracas to protest having lived without a regular water supply for more than a year. The protesters were armed with pots, empty water containers and handmade signs. Residents claim that some of them have begun suffering from health problems due to unclean water supplied by the state-run water distribution company, Hydrocapital. The residents said that the water is yellow in color. The demonstrators were later escorted back to their neighborhood by the police so they could talk with representatives from the water company. Russian President Vladimir Putin met Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan in Moscow. The leaders discussed the supply of S-400 missile systems to Turkey. Putin said that Russia and Turkey will continue their efforts to establish peace in Syria. The Russian president also said that Russia and Turkey will jointly patrol Syria's Idlib province. Erdogan emphasized that the matter of supplies of the Russian S-400 missile systems to Turkey was closed and no one could make the countries cancel their agreement. The United Nations called for a temporary humanitarian truce in Libya. The United Nations said that there is a need to allow voluntary passage of civilians and supply of aid to Libya's embattled capital. UN said that there are at least 3,400 people fleeing from fighting. The violence has also damaged electricity lines and affected residential areas. Clashes between rival Libyan forces for control of Tripoli has escalated as the death toll from the fighting rose to at least 51. The city's only functioning airport has also been hit by an airstrike. Brazil's army said that it has arrested 10 soldiers and charged them with killing an innocent family in Rio de Janeiro. According to local reports, the accused soldiers fired dozens of rounds into the car on Sunday evening. The soldiers had confused the vehicle with one used by alleged gang members who had shot at them. In a statement, Brazil's Eastern Military Command said that there were inconsistencies between the initial statements of the soldiers and that facts came to light only later on. The soldiers have been charged with non-compliance with rules of engagement and their case will be heard by Brazil's military justice. Reports have claimed that US President Donald Trump has ordered the firing of the US Secret Service Director Randolph Alls. This comes a day after the resignation of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. Officials speaking to US media have described the firing as quote-unquote near systematic purge at the Department of Homeland Security. Last week, Trump complimented the Secret Service after the arrest of a Chinese woman who had passed security checkpoints at Trump's Mar-a-Lago, Florida resort. Meanwhile, the White House has not yet commented on Nielsen's exit. The U.S. Justice Department said that it has detained a Maryland man who allegedly plotted to drive a stolen U-Haul truck into pedestrians in Maryland. Authorities said the foiled plan was inspired by the Islamic State. The U.S. Attorney's Office charged 28-year-old Rondell Henry with interstate commerce transportation of a stolen vehicle. Prosecutors say Henry harbored hatred towards non-practicing Muslims and watched multiple foreign extremists' videos. The accused said he was inspired by a terrorist attack in Nice in France in 2016, in which a man drove a truck at high speed into crowds, killing 86 people. Teachers in Poland went on an indefinite nationwide strike to demand higher pay. This comes after days of talks with the government, which has failed to meet the demands of the teachers' union. The Polish government had offered a financial boost to farmers and business as a part of their election campaign, but nothing was allocated for education sector. This has resulted in a strike which comes right before crucial exams in primary and middle schools. The German humanitarian group CI rescued 64 migrants from the Libyan coast. CI rescuers say the vessel does not have enough room, food or water for the migrants. The ship remains stranded in international waters off the Maltese coast. Germany has requested the European Union to find a safe port where the ship can dock. This comes after appeals from the aid groups were refused by Italy and Malta. Protesters in Sudan took to the streets amid the sound of gunfire, demanding for an end to the President Omar al-Bashir's 30-year rule. The current wave of unrest started over an economic crisis but quickly escalated into protest against al-Bashir's rule. Security forces have responded with a violent crackdown in which many people have been killed. Security forces resorted to tear gas in an attempt to break up a sit-in outside the military headquarters. In news from India, the Indian Army has inducted the first batch of indigenous artillery gun called Dhanush into service in India's Madhya Pradesh. The towed howitzer is made with the technology imported from Swedish defence manufacturing company Bofors. Dhanush has cutting-edge communication system, day and night operation capability and modern target acquisition system. The Indian Army has already placed an order for the first batch of artillery guns. Russia has signed an agreement with a group of international scientists to free nearly 100 whales that have been held for months in its Far East. Images of 10 orcas and 87 beluga whales kept in enclosures first appeared when they were caught by firms which plant to sell them off to marine parks. This had angered animal rights groups which filed a petition demanding their release. The petition was shared by Leonardo DiCaprio and got 1.5 million signatures. A special rehabilitation facility will be set up to assist the release of whales. London has introduced a tariff to crack down on polluting vehicles. Drivers of older and more polluting vehicles will now have to pay £12.5 to enter the centre of London. London Mayor hopes that the move will help in improving the air quality of the city. The ultra-low emission zone charge mostly affects petrol cars registered prior to 2006 and diesel models registered before September 2015. During the daytime on weekdays, most motorists will also have to foot an £11.5 congestion charge to enter the same area. Logos Hope, which is the world's largest floating book fair, has arrived at the Uruguayan port of Montevideo. The ship has received more than 7 million visitors and sailed 95,000 nautical miles since 2004. There are 400 volunteers from more than 60 countries on board the ship. The floating bookstore has more than 5,000 titles, catering to a host of readers from children to budding chefs. Al-Mawa Reserve in Souf has welcomed 3 lions evacuated from a neglected zoo in Gaza. The lions were among 46 animals who were relocated due to harsh conditions in Gaza Zoo. The latest zoo rescue is the 4th mission in the Gaza Strip for the Vienna-based organization for Paws. The 3 lions will receive special treatment and proper health care at their new sanctuary. The reserve is managed by the Princess Alia Foundation. Shifting focus over to the world of entertainment, former Smallville actress Alison Mack pleaded guilty in a Brooklyn federal court on Monday to racketeering charges in relation to the cult-like group of NXIVM. Mack entered her plea shortly before jury selection was scheduled to start. The trial was expected to detail sensational allegations that the group recruited sex slaves for its spiritual leader, Keith Raniere. Prosecutors accused Mack of helping Raniere recruit women to a secret sub-society within the group. Mack is best known for her long-running role on the superhero TV show about the early days of Clark Kent's life. However, it was reported that she was heavily involved in NXIVM organization shortly after authorities began making arrests. Mack allegedly got involved with the group when she was unhappy with her acting career. 2 other women charged in the case, former executive Nancy Schultzman and her daughter Lauren, have already pleaded guilty.